Târnocu, Romania, 2005. In the isolated hills of Vaslui County, a story unfolded that would blur the lines between faith, medicine, and the unexplainable. It's a story that begins not in the cold stone halls of a monastery, but in the troubled childhood of a young woman named Irina Cornici. Growing up in a state orphanage, Irina's early life was marked by instability and trauma. At 19, she moved to Germany to work as a nanny, but a severe mental health crisis brought her back to Romania. Seeking refuge and a sense of peace, she found her way to the newly established Holy Trinity Monastery in the remote village of Târnocu. It was here, in this place of supposed sanctuary, that her life would take a terrifying and ultimately fatal turn. Initially, Irina seemed to find solace within the monastery's walls. She was welcomed by the small community of nuns and the head priest, Father Daniel Corrigianu. She spoke of wanting to dedicate her life to God, but the peace was short-lived. Not long after her arrival, Irina began to exhibit troubling behavior. She would laugh during prayers, speak in strange voices, and claim she was hearing the devil. The nuns and Father Corrigianu initially believed she was suffering from schizophrenia, a diagnosis she had received during a brief hospitalization before coming to the monastery. Doctors had prescribed antipsychotic medication, but within the monastery's confines, a different interpretation of her suffering began to take hold. The situation escalated quickly. Irina's episodes grew more violent and unpredictable. She would scream blasphemies, break religious icons, and physically lash out. The nuns reported that she foamed at the mouth and displayed strength that seemed beyond her small frame. Convinced that medication was ineffective and that a demonic force was at play, Father Corrigianu made a fateful decision. He believed Irina was not sick, but possessed. The medical world had offered its solution, and in his eyes, it had failed. Now, it was time for a spiritual one. The community decided an exorcism was the only way to save her soul. What followed was a 3-day ordeal, believing they were in a spiritual battle against evil. Father Corrigianu and 4 nuns restrained Irina. They bound her hands and feet, tied her to a wooden cross, and gagged her with a towel to stifle her screams. For days, they deprived her of food and water, believing that starving the body would weaken the demon within. They prayed over her continuously, chanting passages from holy books, convinced their actions were an act of divine mercy. The isolated monastery became a chamber of horrors, its sacred chants mingling with the muffled cries of a young woman trapped between a psychiatric diagnosis and a medieval ritual. On the 3rd day of the ritual, Irina Cornici fell silent. When the nuns finally untied her, she was unresponsive. They called for an ambulance, but it was too late. 23-year-old Irina Cornici was pronounced dead upon arrival at the hospital. The cause of her death sent shockwaves through Romania and beyond. The official autopsy report was stark and clinical. She had died from dehydration, exhaustion, and asphyxiation. The towel used as a gag had blocked her airway. There was no medical evidence of supernatural possession, only the tragic outcome of a brutal ordeal. The aftermath was immediate and intense. The case became a media sensation, sparking a fierce national debate. Was this a case of religious zealotry gone horribly wrong, or a tragic failure of the mental health care system? Father Corrigianu and the 4 nuns were arrested and charged. During the trial, the priest remained steadfast in his belief. He insisted he was trying to save Irina from demonic possession, not harm her. His defense argued that they were acting out of faith, performing a rite that had been practiced for centuries. They saw themselves not as killers, but as spiritual soldiers fighting a battle that medicine could not comprehend. The prosecution, however, painted a very different picture. They presented the court with the grim facts of the autopsy. They argued that Irina was a vulnerable, mentally ill young woman who was in desperate need of medical care, not a brutal, unsanctioned exorcism. They portrayed the defendant's actions as a display of ignorance and cruelty, culminating in a preventable death. The court was faced with a profound and difficult question. Where does religious freedom end and criminal liability begin? Is a belief in demonic possession a valid defense for actions that result in death? In the end, the court found Father Corrigianu and the nuns guilty. The priest was sentenced to 7 years in prison for murder, while the nuns received sentences ranging from 5 to 8 years. The Holy Trinity Monastery was closed, its brief and tragic history ending in scandal. The case of Irina Cornici remains a haunting reminder of the dangers that can arise when ancient beliefs clash with modern understanding. It serves as a chilling case study on the responsibility of care, the interpretation of suffering, and the devastating consequences that can occur in the grey, ambiguous space between heaven and hell. Thank you for watching. If you found this story compelling, please like this video and subscribe for more deep dives into complex cases.